drowning prevention, about how to protect people from carbon monoxide poisoning following hurricanes. We did a rule proposal to make nursing pillows safer. We did a rule proposal to make infant cushions safer.
The commission has engaged in multiple no-bid contracts totaling around $4 million. The no-bid contracts that I'm aware of have all been awarded to just one individual.
A rule which kills the table saw industry in my district by mandating the entire industry add patented technology at great cost to the benefit of a single individual.
I'm always willing to accept written information.
That's not what I've been told, but I'll take your word at it.
Does a non-bid sole source contracting process strike you as more likely to produce an unbiased opinion than the opposite?
I think it really depends. There's a case of a bounce house with a tube that strangled a child. We asked that that listing get pulled down. Another week later, that same listing was up under a different manufacturer's name. We play a game of whack-a-mole in those cases.
You also tweeted your support for legislation to ban fossil fuels and phase gas stoves out of homes. Do you think that's appropriate for a commissioner?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. I don't remember doing that.
Can you tell us why that number shrank from the previous year? And also, can you tell us what current occupancy utilization rate, what it is, the current rate, please?
Sure. We're returning about 15,000 square feet to the process, which will result in savings for the agency. The analysis was done consistent with GAO's analysis of how many square feet are appropriate per employee. That will take us to the GSA's criteria. In that, we are working consistent. We are open to looking at more ways to be able to examine whether there's additional space that we can give back. There are complications always with that, both in terms of the labs that we have. We need those labs, and it's not a matter of giving space back in those labs. With respect to things like, it's been suggested that we give up conference rooms. Fortunately, we can't give up individual conference rooms within our building because you can't rent out space within the middle. So suggestions like those, obviously, we can't look at, but overall, we are looking to squeeze wherever we can. And that is a process that takes months on end working with GSA to return those properties.
What are some of the things that people will really feel if the budget is cut?
Thank you for the question. If the budget is cut, like has been suggested by House Appropriations, it will result in fewer people. Already we're down about 35 people from our high. That means there are going to be less people at the ports, which means that there's going to be more dangerous products coming into the country. That means there's going to be less people working in compliance, which means that there will probably be fewer recalls and less people to go after the bad actors who are out there. There are going to be less people who are going to be at the labs, who are going to be looking at the dangers that the people on the committee have spoken about. There's going to be less people on our communications side. So we aren't going to be getting out the message about drowning prevention, about how to protect people from carbon monoxide poisoning following hurricanes. All in all, across the board, we're going to see less work, more dangers for American consumers.
And enlighten us on the work that you have been doing on the important work on children.
So we have been very active protecting children. We have a number of rulemakings that are actually open at this point in time. We did a rule proposal to make nursing pillows safer. We did a rule proposal to make infant cushions safer. Those are near the end of the process, and I would predict that the staff will likely send a final rule proposal up to us. We've done a tremendous amount implementing the Safe Sleep for Babies Act that you all passed and have directed us. And at this point in time, for us, it's an enforcement mechanism, enforcement for us, which we are dedicating resources to and making sure the law that you pass is being put into operation.
In the case of outside contractors used by the CPSC, are those all done through a bidding process?
We do it consistent with the FAR's requirements. Some are a bidding process, some of them are single source.
It's my understanding that the Commission has engaged in multiple no-bid contracts totaling around $4 million. The no-bid contracts that I'm aware of have all been awarded to just one individual. Are you aware of that?
I believe you're talking about the Boise State contract, yes.
a rule which kills the table saw industry in my district by mandating the entire industry add patented technology at great cost to the benefit of a single individual. It's simply unacceptable and unconstitutional. And that's why I'm a proud co-sponsor and lead Republican on H.R. 8181, the bipartisan legislation introduced by our Democrat colleague, Ms. Perez, that would overturn this rule. I'm glad that the Appropriations Committee has also included language in this year's bill that would eliminate the funding for this rule, and I hope that you will note the bipartisan nature of our opposition to your work. I would also note that the same FSGG bill also precludes your work on the ill-informed rule on off-road vehicles, which are also made in South Carolina. Part of what makes the portable generator rule workable is its reliance on the UL voluntary standard is precisely what's wrong with these other two rules. Rather than allow industry to serve customers with what works, you're trying to overrule them in ways that simply aren't common sense. Commissioner Feldman, I noticed you dissented and provided an extensive statement on the table saw matter. Can you talk about that?
Mr. Duncan, I appreciate the question because I am opposed to this rule as currently drafted. I'm concerned that it would add significant cost to the table saws that contractors and hobbyists use every day without offering much in the way of additional safety. This isn't a hidden hazard. The rule would raise significant competition concerns and threatens to concentrate market power in a way that I believe would be highly problematic. Monopolies are bad. Government-sanctioned monopolies are worse. And SawStop's pledge to dedicate just one of its over 140 patents was a stunt. The patent isn't even the patent it's asserting to keep competitors out of the marketplace, but as currently drafted and giving SawStop's continued litigiousness, I'm not aware that staff has identified a path forward on this rule. At the same time, I'm not sure that there's a majority to remove it from our agenda, so I do worry that the Commission could move to finalize this rule absent clear direction from Congress to the contrary.
Recently, Commissioner Trumka was allowed to work independently outside the rulemaking process and was successful in shutting down sales of a category of products from being sold at major retailers. You even used CPSC stationery to do so. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter in the record a copy of the letter that he sent on CPSC stationery.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. Leading some to believe that this was a communication from the full commission. This decision was based on insufficient data and no formal definition of this category of products. This sets the wrong precedence for CPSC against industry, rendering industry's efforts to conduct studies, share data, and work through the processes rather pointless. So, Mr. Chairman, how can a single commissioner be allowed to effectively induce a ban of a product category without any due process or a commission vote?
So, as you noted, this is not an action of the whole commission. Each commissioner has the ability to go and speak their minds and preferences. I have made sure and asked that commissioners be clear about when they're speaking for themselves as opposed to when they're speaking for the commission, and to put that in the writings going forward. But at that point, I'm sure you wouldn't want me to tell my Republican colleagues to be quiet and not talk. Each commissioner has the ability to go out, state their preferences. It's important, though, for them for people to understand.
Yeah, but the way it comes across as bullying, and it comes across to the industry that it might be an official position of the CPSC. Commissioner Trumka took several meetings with consumer advocates. However, he does not respond to industry meeting requests. CPSC is a regulator, not a consumer advocacy organization. How can a commissioner do his or her job without meeting with all the stakeholders? Is that common practice at CPSC?
Sir, I appreciate the question. I accept information from all sources. I think it's valuable to do so. I've sometimes declined meeting requests with regulated entities when we have an open agency action, but I'm always willing to accept written information.
That's not what I've been told, but I'll take your word at it.
We just passed out of the House the Consumer Safety Technology Act. It allows for your commission to use AI to track reports of fraud or injury or other things. How important is the use of AI becoming in the work that the Consumer Product Safety Commission is doing, and how important is funding to make those efforts go forward?
Thank you for the question. I think AI is incredibly important, both from the internal side, the agency to use it and to be able to sort through the terabytes of data that we're getting in from various sources. It's impossible for any individual to be able to go through that. You need a system to be able to look through that through artificial intelligence or machine learning to be able to cull out the future hazard patterns and to make sure that we are on top of things and be able to go forward. AI is also incredibly important on the product side of things and making sure that we are able to spot the problems in potential products out there. Both of those take a tremendous amount of resources, and we currently don't even have a computer scientist who is focused on looking at the outside. So I'd love to be able to expand our expertise, but we just don't have the money to do that.
How can we possibly believe that Dr. Mann's work is not biased in any manner based on the millions of taxpayer funding that you guys are providing her in no-bid contracts, and then she turns around and profits a second time selling her testimony as a CPSC expert despite these non-peer-reviewed studies? Did she get these no-bid contracts because she's the only author you could find who agreed with the CPSC's goals? Chairman.
In order to contract, we go through our FARS process that allows for both bid and single bid contracts as well. In this case, we can't do testing on small children safely, so we put out the contracts for others. And so anytime we want to have a process, we both look for expertise at Boise State, as well as to be able to look to make sure that any children are actually treated safely.
Okay, so in the interest of keeping in my time limit, I just want to leave you with a question, Mr. Chairman. Does a non-bid sole source contracting process strike you as more likely to produce an unbiased opinion than the opposite?
I think it really depends. I think in this case, they were looking to make sure that we're able to safely test with a...
I'm sure you're glad Congress doesn't operate that way.
The gentleman's time has expired. Over the last few years, we've seen a rise in direct-to-consumer shipments from overseas, presenting challenges to the surveillance of imports. What challenges do low-value direct-to-consumer goods cause for CPSC import surveillance?
So products that are shipments under $800, so-called de minimis imports, we've seen a tremendous growth in those. Last year, about $1 billion coming into the country, rising from $500 million in 2019. These are going directly to consumers. It's incredibly hard to track. CPSC is working on an e-filing program to be able to require importers to be able to provide more data to the agency to be able to track and identify even de minimis products. But honestly, given the number of them, without the support at the ports, as you said, and without ways to be able to put some of the onus on the platforms that we're doing that these are being bought through, it is a huge problem.
What does the CPSC do? Maybe this has been asked, but in cases where a third-party seller disappears from the marketplace once product recall has been issued?
So if we find a defective product and it's a third-party seller that's overseas, we'll reach out, we'll try and do a recall, but oftentimes they'll just disappear. Yeah. At which point in time, we'll go and we'll put a warning out and we'll ask the platform to take down the listing. But unfortunately, there was a case of a bounce house with a tube that strangled a child. We asked that listing get pulled down. Another week later, that same listing was up under a different manufacturer's name. We play a game of whack-a-mole in those cases.
Commissioner Trumka, you tweeted from your official account as a CPSC commissioner several statements putting the safety of gas stoves into question. Do you believe it's appropriate for a commissioner to do this before the commission has made a safety determination?
Thank you for the question, Representative. I do believe it is incumbent to share safety concerns as an individual commissioner when we see them.
So even before the commission made the determination, you thought it was perfectly fine?
Well, I think there's a few different things. I mean, if you're talking about rulemaking, that is a process that we go through as a commission, but sharing our concerns about individual potential product hazards is something that commissioners do.
Commissioner Trumka, you also tweeted your support for legislation to ban fossil fuels and phase gas stoves out of homes. Do you think that's appropriate for a commissioner?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. I don't remember doing that.
The Consumer Protection Safety Commission approved a request for information related to gas stoves, which was characterized as, I quote, gas stove hazards and potential solutions. Does the CPSC have any plans to re-regulate or regulate gas stoves or other gas-fired appliances?
So there's no plans for any regulatory rulings. Obviously, there's a law that's passed. We do actively look at individual products and have conducted at least 4 recalls of gas stoves where it was carbon monoxide leaks. So we continue that work, but not with respect to regulating. We do examine it. We've been working with voluntary standards committees. I think industry has recognized the importance of both trying to measure the fumes coming off of stoves and honestly all cooking.
So you currently don't plan to ban gas stoves, is that correct?
No, Congresswoman, there's no plan to ban gas stoves.
How does the CPSC enforce restrictions on dangerous substances such as sodium nitrite, particularly dangerous substances that may be ordered online and shipped directly to consumers?
So we do have an e-safe team that goes and monitors marketplaces looking for products that are violative or that have been banned or recalled. In a case like this, if we saw anything on there, first of all, we would do business education to make sure that people knew about the ban that's in place. Second, we'd be monitoring the marketplaces. Whenever we'd see it, we'd reach out to both the platform to make sure that was taken down, but also, which is voluntary on their part, and also to go to the manufacturers to make sure that that is stopped. If they are overseas, that is a lot harder. If they're in the U.S., then of course we'd educate them on the statute and make sure that that was not for sale.
How do you all define numerous? Chairman?
I would say similar to many. It would depend on the context.
Okay. So in Vegas, in a video poker machine, a royal flush pays 250 to 1. To give that perspective, 4 of a kind pays 25 to 1. And those are Vegas odds, not real odds. The actual odds of drawing a straight flush are 0.000154%. The reason I bring that up is because that is the higher percentage than dying from an ROV or a UTV based on a penetration value. Over the course of a 20-year study, and this is on lifespan, I'm assuming there's more, it's 0.00014%. There were 6 deaths, 4 from branches, 1 from a large stick, and 1 from a 3-inch piece of wood. There are also 20 injuries, which is a 0.0005% chance of injury. But the injuries are 10 hospital admissions, 3 emergency room treatments, 3 first aid, and 10 level of care not known. So I'm reading your notice of proposed rule that was issued in 2021, and it said numerous injuries. And so I'm asking how you define numerous, because I would define that as extremely rare. What happened to that case at the DC Circuit, Mr. Feldman?
Are you referring to the WCMA case?
Yeah.
The WCMA case vacated the agency's rulemaking.
Why did they vacate it?
For 2 main reasons. One, the court took issue with the unreasonable length of time that we put for rule implementation. It also took issue with the agency's failure to share incident data with stakeholders and provide an opportunity for notice and comment.
Yeah. Cost-benefit analysis,
Yes,
flawed
sir.
notice, comments on underlying incident data, and arbitrary effective date. That's what I have, right?
Yes, sir.
And how did they deal with the industry's revised, adequately addressed CPC's concerns on voluntary industry compliance?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Was there substantial compliance by the industry to solve this, what I'll say is extremely rare, but your notice said numerous?
With respect to the ROV rulemaking?
Yeah.
We're still in the process of reviewing the comments that we put out. We in accordance with the WCMA case, need to publish the incident data for public comment. I anticipate that will occur later this summer.
So when the rule went into place, can you explain to me how you get there from that few number of incidents into a place where you are mandatory complying in industry, not taking into effect supply chain, not figuring cost of compliance, no retailer, I mean, things that kill more people than ATVs over that period of time, fireworks, which makes sense, skydiving, which makes sense, vending machines, balloons. I mean, you're putting an entire industry in a place of forced compliance, and if the DC Circuit wouldn't have vacated, that would have happened, right?
Sir, the OHV debris penetration rule is not currently in effect.
Okay. So what did the DC Circuit Court vacate?
The WCMA window covering.
The window covering rule. Okay, thank you. So moving forward, as you're going through this rule, like how do you factor in the number of incidents that occur in debris? Do you factor in where they're driving it, how they're driving it, how many miles are driven, where these vehicles are driven?
Yes, sir. All those factors go into the agency's calculus about not only the risk assessment, but also hearing directly from industry about the extent of the injuries, reviewing the incidents that we're aware of with an opportunity to comment, and beyond that, an opportunity to weigh in about any technical feasibility or cost issues related to the standard that the agency might propose.
Trade associations representing all-terrain vehicle industry have made multiple requests to meet with you, at least that's what I'm told. But you have refused to have discussions with them. Is that true? And if so, why?
Appreciate the opportunity. Could I quickly address the debris penetration and then
as soon as you answer my question.
Sure. Thank you. I have received written information from folks. I'm not sure if I've received meeting requests, but I'm happy to go back and examine those. If I have, I'm happy to take those meetings.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And you wanted to address
the debris penetration. The one point I'd like to make is that it's a particularly vexing issue. I own a quad. I own a side-by-side. And as Mr. Bouchon pointed out earlier, we want to put out PSAs on people wearing helmets, wearing their seatbelts, keeping your arms inside the vehicles to stay safe. Those things don't protect against the debris penetration issue. We've seen those impalements happening at less than 5 miles an hour. So you could be creeping through the woods and being safe, and it's not going to prevent that. That's why I think it's a particularly vexing issue.
If Mr. Armstrong's statistics are correct, it does appear to be pretty rare, at least with any degree of injury. And so this rulemaking has the potential of shutting down an industry, basically. And so, it does appear pretty extreme from the vantage point that we're in.
On January 12th, 2023, former CPSC Chair Ann Brown published an opinion piece in the Washington Post titled "Guns Are Consumer Products. They should be regulated as such." This is despite the letter of the law, specifically the Consumer Product Safety Commission Improvement Act of 1976, expressly prohibiting the CPSC from making any rule or order restricting the manufacture or sale of firearms or ammunition. And this question is to each of you, yes or no. Is the CPSC legally permitted to implement gun control measures? That's a yes or no, and I'll start with you, Mr. Trumka. Go down the line.
No, they are exempt from our act.
No.
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 No. Okay.
Agency officials were grossly negligent at best and lied at worst when they signed statements of assurance indicating that internal controls regarding the clearinghouse were in place and operating effectively. So, Commissioner Boyle, how do you account for the IG's characterization of agency candor? You were the executive director at that time, so what the heck was going on?
Well, thank you for the question. I think at the time of the clearinghouse disclosure, the agency was forthright in saying that there was a mistake that was made, a human error.
Or multiple?
Certainly. I think there was no question, and the agency was forthright in admitting that. There were numerous investigations, including by houses of Congress, and I think we're very forthright in admitting that there were mistakes, and we made efforts to correct those mistakes. And when there was a human error, which is really the source of the problem that you're talking about, we acted to correct those as best we could, and I certainly did the best I could under my to the best of my ability. So we instituted training. We tried to develop some technological solutions, and I understand that there was great concern, and I think we were very forthright in admitting that.
And I appreciate, you know, taking accountability, right? But accountability means action. You said that there was technical training, but if you have people who are outright lying, I mean, my question is, who was fired?
I'm not aware that anybody was fired at that time, and there had been open recommendations for some period well after I was executive director, so I won't account for the last several years. But at that time, nobody was fired, but there was certainly training and there was an attempt to address very openly the problems that we found, and nobody tried to say otherwise.
So no one was fired. Did anyone resign?
No.
Have the people who have been identified who lied, right, in this particular investigation, the people identified, have they remained in those positions or have they gone on to other positions?
Well, let me be clear. I understand you quoted from the Inspector General's report. I am not aware of anyone lying. I am not aware of anyone lying to me. And so I understand that that was his conclusion and how he characterized it, but I am not aware of anyone lying to me.
But I mean, you understand that this is the frustration that American people have in general. You're here before this committee asking for a bump in your budget, and yet we're finding through OIG reports where there have been instances of mischaracterizations, lying, real issues that have truly not been addressed. And I think saying, yes, we're taking responsibility, but what is the action that follows thereafter? I don't think training is enough. I mean, there has to be real accountability.
Without objection, the subcommittee is adjourned.